I know I'm interrupting your normally scheduled program, but I have a quick announcement. This month, we're giving you a little bit of a treat because it's the end of this first season of Imperfect Parenting, and we're about to start another one. But as a gift to you, the entire month, it's going to be full of Ben, Seth, and I every single week. You're going to love it this month.
So to all listeners and those listening today, thank you for being with us. Thanks for joining us in this season. We so look forward to next season. It's been such a joy.
If you don't already follow us, though, and like our podcast or share it, please do, because it definitely helps us, and we want to know your friends and family.
So before we jump into this episode, the last thing to remind you of, send us your memes on Instagram. Brittney, Seth, myself. Let us have the memes. We'll be sharing those in this next season. All right, here we go.
Welcome back to Imperfect Parenting. All three of us are here again, which means first, we're going to have a great conversation.
Yeah.
Second, we're kind of starting a new topic for the month. And this is going to be a good podcast.
Yep.
It's very fun. All right, I haven't done the meme in a while, so
You
I'm
haven't
taking
done
over.
a meme in a while.
She's taking this meme.
I did.
I like this meme.
I know. Well, I'm
I
setting
would love
you
to
guys
share.
up because it goes with
Ben
the two of
found
you.
this meme yesterday.
You know what? Good things I find are for us.
They are.
Go ahead.
So the meme for today is a father and son in
Looks like Home Depot.
Depot. Yeah, that's what I definitely would say is Home Depot. But, like this little probably 4 or 5-year-old child, he's got on a superhero cape and a hat of some kind that's kind of funny looking, big boots looking. So he's decked out for whatever imaginative play that he's embracing.
Like most 4-year-old boys.
Right. Exactly. Going Home Depot in your Batman or your Spider-Man costume. I don't know how many
Absolutely.
times Lincoln did that. But the dad that's walking down the aisle next to him,
Pushing the cart.
pushing the cart, has on a bright red cape as well.
Yeah.
And the meme says, I know a good dad when I see one.
Come on.
And the reason we chose this meme is because we're talking about identifying and developing our children's gifts, like the spiritual
Yes.
elements of their life. And so the dad is,
he's
he's a
embracing it.
superhero. His kid's a superhero. He's pulling it out of his kid.
He is.
And he's going right along with him.
Yeah.
So, Seth, you wrote the book on supernatural.
Raising spirit-led kids.
I mean, my book has little sprinkles of that. I talk about it in the 7 pillars. Faith is one of them. So I reference this, but this is your sweet spot. We were talking the other night that I have a bend towards marriage, parenting, family, and that's kind of where I stay in a lot of the relational marriage tools. And you have family and the supernatural and bringing in the spiritual component.
Yeah.
So like those are our two same but different
Yeah, same but
expressions
different.
in this heart. So unpack this for parents a little bit. Like, what does this mean? How do you even see it? How do you even develop it? Where do you start?
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah, this is a huge, I think it's a big conversation. Could be a long one, but yeah, like, how adults kind of get in the place, spiritually speaking, adults get in the place of like, well, I'm a feeler. So I walk into a room and I feel what's going on. I can sense it. Other people are like, I'm a seer or I hear. And so, we kind of get in these places where our predominant way we interact with the spirit realm, interact with God, we sort of go, all right, that's me. That's who I am. I'm a feeler. So I'm going to feel. I'm not going to necessarily look or listen. I'm just going to go in and feel stuff. I think kids, Jesus was like, hey, if you want to enter the kingdom, you need to repent and become like little children. And I think I think sometimes adults are like looking for how does my kid interact predominantly with the spirit realm, but don't necessarily realize like, hey, if your kid came out, you're like, all you can do is see, but you can't hear, you can't smell, you can't taste, and your skin has no feelings. Like, we need miracles here.
Yeah.
So I think there's this general belief I have about kids that they come out very spiritual, very.
I think that's why they're so sensitive and so
Very
many
they're
areas,
sensitive to everything going around them, going on around them. They can see things, They can sense things, they can feel things, they can hear things. I think kids are definitely spiritual. And so I think as we start this conversation, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit about it, but I think we want to be careful not to limit our kids and go, you know what, my kid is interacting with the spirit realm. I may have been taught away from, and I have to unlearn a bunch of stuff that they don't have to unlearn. And I don't want to limit them by my experience or me going, well, I'm a feeler, so you must be a feeler, or I'm going to help you just develop this one area. No,
because we limit ourselves as adults.
Because we limit ourselves as adults that way. And so I think there's a lot to this. But for me, I would go, our kids are very spiritual. Our kids are interacting with the spirit realm that we may not even realize is happening anymore because we're so locked into our natural...
Trained
into our natural awareness, and we're less and less aware of what's going on, and they're not.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're talking about, is kind of identifying who they are. You know, even biblically, God, there's so many times where God's like, I know you can't get pregnant. You're going to get pregnant. You're going to have a boy. Here's what he's going to do. Here's what you're going to call him. Here's what, like, oh, God knows what he's doing. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Like, there's something really real to that. And so I think some of it comes down to, like, what's God say about them? Who are they? And how do you nurture that, develop that without limiting it? You know, I think I'm totally rambling, but
ramble away.
Like when we were in children's ministry, so this is just super practical. So many kids are like, there's a monster under my bed. And parents are like, it's just your imagination. Just go to sleep. We're tired. Just go to sleep. It's not real. I'm like, well, what if it is? What if it is, and you are just so desensitized to the spirit realm that there is something under their bed? And maybe it's just their imagination. Maybe it's not, though. And so, that was kind of a rule for us. It was like, maybe don't say that. Don't say it's not real. Don't say it's not, it's just your imagination. Don't squash that thing, because this may be a gift. This may be them seeing, sensing, I feel scared, I see this thing, it's saying this to me, so I'm interacting with this thing, and you're telling me it's not real. Well, little by little, that kid desensitizes themselves and shuts down spiritual gifts, spiritual senses.
Yeah.
So
really good.
I'm fully rambling, but...
I was going to say, it's a little bit of a parallel that I want to bring it back, but kind of thinking about the role of the parent. We have a good friend named Eric Knopf, and we've visited this topic a few times here. His book is called Raising Entrepreneurs. Is that what it's called? I think so. Incredible book, really helpful. Different topic we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm thinking about it is, he tells these stories about his own children, how he's raising them, and then even his upbringing with his parents. What would happen is he would get this idea, and his parents would tune into him and kind of come alongside and find out, how can I support what's happening inside of you rather than telling you how to do it? And there was kind of this discovery process. It was just so beautiful. And he talks about where he is today. He's this really successful
businessman, entrepreneur.
I mean, he's a what do they call people who just cannot help themselves?
Serial
entrepreneur, right? It's amazing, but it's because they didn't bring their preconceived, trained ideas
into
and
who
so
he was.
It feels like a similar conversation we're having a little bit here as parents. Is I have to be so careful not to bring my preconceived and even my own maturity at some level. I've matured in this, and so I figured out even my own gifts. And this is how I function. This is how I feel and experience the Lord. But I'm approaching my child with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Every time.
I remember one of the first encounters that we had with Delaney that I can remember kind of fully walking out, because she's very compassionate. She's a very compassionate heart, and which, if she doesn't learn how to manage that. This gift of compassion, that gets her in trouble, which we've walked through that. But when she's also always been a really big feeler. She's got big emotions, highs and lows. She doesn't really like the middle ground. She wants to be, in the valleys or on top of the mountain. Those are her preferred places. But when she was about, 8 or 9, we went, she was in gymnastics, and we went to a competition that, I don't know why they had this. They had a competition in Las Vegas for children. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
But, they're super hungry. We've been waiting forever at this restaurant because there's a million people there. And we're at this Chinese restaurant or something, and across the way inside of the hotel is a bar, but then all of a sudden, like, these walls come down. So you can't see inside the bar anymore. Like, they close it for, obviously you probably could get in and out, but they closed the whole thing. It was all open. Now it's enclosed. And the music changes. And I go, oh, I know what's happening.
Nightclub time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh, I know what's going on. Obviously, we're paying attention. It's Las Vegas, so it's hard to hide. But anyway, so all of a sudden, Lainey, who's so hungry, wants to eat, is just bouncing around. They're all excited because their competition starts tomorrow. She immediately, her whole body changes, like her posture, her tone, and how she's speaking, even her facial expressions. Everything's different. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, I'm not hungry anymore. I'm like, honey, you haven't eaten. I know you're hungry. She's like, I'm not hungry. I feel sick. I don't feel good. I need to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, what is going on? But because I'm putting this together and I'm like, oh.
She's picking this up.
This girl who's so sensitive to the spirit is overwhelmed and doesn't know how to manage it. So we went to the bathroom. I pulled her aside and I said, Delaney, you know what's happening? There's a war in the spirit realm right now, and you are caught in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And you've got to know the side that you belong on. And so I just kind of explained that there's this evil spirit that comes in, and it's called seduction, and it's called perversion, and that is trying to creep in, and that's what's making you sick.
Yeah.
And I said, you are a child of the King. You are mighty. You are righteous, and you don't have any of those things. So you got to kick them out. I said it because it's not your thing at all. And I said, I can't kick them out for you, but I can teach you how to do it. And so we just kind of started declaring things over her body and over the spirit, and instantly it all changes.
Yeah.
And we prayed, and I said, how you doing? She goes, I'm hungry. Mm-hmm. But it was just this moment where I know she's always been sensitive. She loves the big emotions, but she's usually feeling things that are going on in the spirit realm. And that was just the first time I had seen it so instantly affect her and then instantly change.
Yeah.
And that's, I just think paying attention to those little things are so helpful to not get stuck in that I could become frustrated with my kid, or she could have actually gone to vomiting and really just this whole thing could have happened.
Or not just helpful, I think necessary. Because what happens to the kids who have no idea this is going on? Their parents don't know how to develop this, recognize this, and pull them aside and go, what's happening? Yeah. That kid goes, some parents will be like, what's wrong? You're throwing up. Oh my gosh, let's go to the doctor. And the doctor's looking for stuff like, nothing's wrong. But then it's this spiral of we don't know what's going on, but it's all physical when the whole, or kids who, let's say it's suicide. Mm-hmm. Let's say you walk into a place like this and all of a sudden kids are getting hit with suicidal thoughts. Like I've had that a lot. My daughter's had that in the grocery store, in Target. She's had that. I'm like, oh, if you're not able to go, this isn't yours. You're a child of God. This is not you. Now there are times where it's like, this might be me.
Yeah.
But if all of a sudden you're getting hit with suicidal thoughts in a place and you don't recognize that, what happens to the kid who thinks that's them? Mm-hmm. What happens to the kid who's like, oh my gosh, now I'm fighting me. The battle's me, not something out there. Mm-hmm. Or the kid who doesn't even realize it's a battle and they are full on in it, and now this kid is struggling with stuff that isn't even theirs.
I think a lot of times these things manifest like instant rice, like it's instant, like it is on or off, it doesn't.
Absolutely.
I think it's more theirs when it's, situation after situation and it's a lie that they've let take root. Mm-hmm. But when it's instant, I would that would be when I'd be paying attention, parents, of like, okay, your kid who's always happy, who's always edifying, who's always looking for the good, all of a sudden is nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
there's something warring against them. Okay, what is that? What
Yeah.
do they need? How can you help guide them to finding their peace and finding who they are again?
Yeah.
So
I know.
Delaney, like that story happened when she was 8. Fast forward to just like last year, she's having one for her girlfriends spending the night, and she wakes up throwing up, sick.
Her friend or her?
Her.
Okay.
And so her friend has to leave, and I'm like, this just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. And so I said, because I could feel in the spirit, I was praying for them because I was like, Lord, I don't know what's going on, but I just asked for wisdom and peace, and that you would protect. That's what I feel like I need prayer. And I didn't know. So next morning, girl leaves, all this stuff. I'm asking them, like, what's going on? How you doing? She tells me, my friend just told me that she's a lesbian and she misses making out with her ex-girlfriend. And she's like, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I'm like, oh, her body is so sensitive to these things. But she knew that that's why she was sick the next morning. She's like, I just think that I didn't know how to get her to not be in the environment. And my body's like, I'm taking over.
Yeah.
So, she was fine the next morning, but it's just this crazy thing. And I just love how the Holy Spirit works, because he's literally, it's these little prompts.
Yep.
And tuning yourself into those little prompts
Yeah.
is the best weapon that you can have as a parent. Because I'm just learning how to be sensitive.
I just feel like this is super helpful right now for a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Your kid's not dealing with just their own stuff, because they are interacting with a realm we may not be aware of, they may not be aware of, but becoming aware gives you power in it.
Hey parents, let's be real. As every parent from the beginning of time has discovered, kids don't come with a manual. Parenting is a learning journey from the beginning to end. And like all learning journeys, it's full of lessons, challenges, questions, mistakes, and messes. One of the biggest reasons so many of us get scared, discouraged, frustrated, and overwhelmed as a parent is we think the goal of parenting is to become perfect parents who raise perfect children. Which leads us to adopt the fear-driven strategies that focus on avoiding mistakes and messes, and we use control and punishment to change behavior. I wrote a book called Imperfect Parenting, where I explain the true goal of parenting, a safe, loving, heart-to-heart connection with our kids. Pursuing the goal of connection is what sets us up to influence the hearts, minds, and behavior of our children as we guide them on their own learning journey to becoming healthy, confident, and emotionally intelligent. This book will give you the tools you need to lay down the goal of perfection and become fully engaged in your journey of building a healthy, connected family culture where your children can thrive. You can find Imperfect Parenting by going to www.lovingonpurpose.com and clicking store. That's www.lovingonpurpose.com and click store. You should talk about what Haley Braun taught on your connection with the Holy Spirit and
The fruits.
because I think that's a really practical thing.
Yeah,
to give to parents.
just to share real quick, I'm sitting there thinking about Delaney and kind of her life, and she's almost 18 at this point, so lots of life lived with us. But I was thinking, I remember a day sitting at your parents' house before she was born, and just kind of praying for this little girl that's about to enter our world and change everything. And I had this picture the Lord was giving me that she's going to be like this bridge between people that don't have access to God and those that need it.
Wow.
She's the bridge. And just watching how her life's played out, like she's had to learn how to strengthen the bridge, so to say.
Yeah.
And fast forward 6 years in her life, she's 6 or 7 years old. We talked about this already, but now you're baptizing her. And the guy who's going down the line at church says, she's the last one, and says, why do you want to get baptized? And she's 6, but she's adamant on doing it. But her response is, for justice and for Jesus.
Yeah.
So there's just these signposts throughout her life that point to this is the call in your life, these are probably the gifts that are going to show up or be needed. And so I'm tuning in, like Brittney's saying, so when Las Vegas happens, when this sleepover happens, like, okay, there's something manifesting that isn't yours, but it also confirms the thing that's on your life.
Yeah, who you are.
There's this gift inside of you that's actually meant for people to give some away.
Yeah.
And the thing Brittney's referring to is, if you don't know who Haley Braun is,
She's awesome.
you should go find her.
Yes.
She's a.
Is she even like super active on social media and stuff?
She actually just launched like a school not very long ago
Okay.
where
They have
she's
like
developing courses. So she's
she
trying
has that
to grow.
one like checking your vitals
That's it.
that she does with Melissa
Yep.
Casey.
Mhm.
That's
Yep.
like
That
checking
just
your
came
vital
out
sign.
this last year, and
that's
then,
right.
but she's growing. I think she's speaking more and more on stage. I'm
Bethel
calling her
Church.
the female younger Bill Johnson.
Exactly.
Like that's what she feels like.
She's carrying something.
She's awesome.
And yeah, she is worth your time just to receive from. She's carrying something very
Yeah.
special for this generation, I think. So,
Yeah.
Haley Braun.
Yes.
And even this conversation, she's carrying something for this conversation right
Yeah.
here, too. They have a couple of kids, and her husband Ryan's an absolute champion.
He's so great.
But the thing that Haley was really talking about is, we feel or we get disconnected from God. And we're often trying to figure out, what did I do wrong? Where did I lose it? And the piece to figure out, and that she was kind of teaching us in this thing we're doing in Kylo U recently,
Yep.
a little shameless plug,
Yep.
Kylo University, is one of the things to look at is what's the fruit that's missing from my life right now? Because we're called to bear fruit. I should be bearing fruit.
Much fruit.
Jesus taught that throughout the Gospels, that you should be bearing fruit. And if you're not,
Something's wrong. It's
painful.
Yeah.
like what's going to happen to the trees that don't bear fruit?
Totally.
So you should be bearing fruit. And when the fruit stops, go back and figure out, first of all, what is it? Is it joy? Is it peace? Is it kindness? Is it self-control? What's missing? And then how do you get it back?
Yeah.
Because when the pipes aren't clogged, that fruit should be flowing.
Yeah.
And it's probably just a good reminder for parents in their own life. And then as your child matures,
Yep.
I would say that we could easily now look at, Delaney, Adeline, and even Lincoln going, all right, you're still growing and, maybe less on Lincoln than Adeline and Delaney. But, Adeline, where did your gentleness go? What's going on? Your words towards your brother feel different. And I usually ask her, what's going on there? Because something's shifted. So what is it that are you having a hard time with school? Are you having a hard time with some friends? Do you not feel like you're connected to the Holy Spirit? I mean, we just kind of go through these questions.
Yeah.
And I love how Haley put this because it's kind of this read, a meter, if you will,
Yeah.
on your car. Or,
Measurement.
yeah, it is a little bit of feedback. So it might be harder for a toddler who's always lacking self-control.
Exactly.
But your slightly older kids, it could be a really great way to be even introducing the Holy Spirit and our relationship with Him.
Yeah. Another thing I think can be really helpful is like a lot of times kids get attacked in the area
They're called.
that they're called into.
Yeah.
And, one example for us is our son Arrow. So Arrow's born, he's like brand new. My dad calls me and he goes, because his name is AERO. My dad calls me and goes, there's a language called AOEs. Aerodynamic, aeronautics, AOEs. He said, there's a language. I just learned about this language, AOEs, and it's what they speak in every air traffic control tower on Earth. So if you leave one country and fly into another, it's based on English, but every single country speaks it because those pilots have to be able
Right.
to hear and understand you. And so there's this special language just for flying, landing, and making sure people get to their destination. And he tells me this, and I'm out there, I was weed whacking, and the Lord comes upon me. I feel the Lord just land on me, and I'm like getting wrecked about my son speaking, traveling, interacting with cultures, being able to communicate with people of all cultures, and helping people arrive at their destination safely. And, I'm getting wrecked about my kid. I'm like, wow, man. Grandpa spoke this.
That's
Didn't even
awesome.
know it. I'm
Yeah.
interpreting what Grandpa spoke.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, we get this diagnosis from Arrow. You know, not all of a sudden. It's a few years later, like Arrow's not talking. And when he is, it's not right. And we get this diagnosis that he's got a Proxia, which is a neurological disorder, and he hears the words correctly in his head, but his muscles can't actually, like there's something neurologically wrong. And I was like, okay, you're getting attacked in the very area I know you're called to.
That's right.
And I was like, and our lady who diagnosed him, she goes, listen, just don't Google it. And I said, yeah, we're not Googling it because I'm not going to partner. I don't want to partner my faith. No, I'm not living in denial.
Right.
He's got a Proxia. We can't talk right now. Well, now we can, but he can't talk. And I'm going, but I'm not going to Google that and partner my faith, and I'm not going to go into fear. I know what God said. I know, and so we're going to do whatever we need to do. But all of that to say is like, oh, sometimes our kids, you know, if you're like, maybe you're not certain who your kid is, what attacks are coming against them? What's the thing coming after them? You know, I got this really sensitive kid, like, oh, that could, and they're not doing well in certain places. Like, oh, that's a sign to kind of point you back to how do I discover who you are? How do I discover what you're here for? How do I discover what you're carrying? How do I discover how you interact with this? It's like, oh, maybe some of the attacks. Like now Arrow's had a miracle.
Yeah.
He's talking.
He talks a lot.
He won't stop. We're like, help us, Jesus. But
That's every time I'm around, I'm like, oh, buddy.
But to me, that's the confirmation to go, oh,
yeah,
you have a real diagnosis. This is something real. This is something legit. We're not going to deny that. We are going to deny it influence over what we believe about you and who we think you are. We're going to do what we need to do. But in the natural.
And just to pause for a second, that your son was healed.
Yeah, he had a miracle.
You've lived through this, but just for the listeners, that's amazing.
It's amazing.
That's incredible.
It's so crazy.
I love that.
But that whole deal, I think, is helpful for parents too.
So
it's
good,
like,
Seth.
if your kid's getting attacked in an area, pay attention to that and go, hey,
yeah.
oh, this is coming at you. Like, how'd Jesus get attacked? If you're the son. Oh, you're the Son of God, the one begotten Son of God. And now your first conversation with the enemy is to talk about whether or not you're a son and how you're going to prove it. Like, oh, you got attacked in the area that is who you are and who you're here to bring all of us into. So I think that's just a helpful
Really
thing
good.
for some parents to go,
Really good.
my kid's having nightmares. My kid's having, this is important to pay attention to and go, this is an attack on my kid's gifts, my kid's calling, identity.
I think the other thing that, part of the question, which I'll mosey on over to the question is, sometimes one child's gifts feel louder than the other child's.
Absolutely.
Or more obvious. Like Delaney's ability and compassion for the hurting, the broken, the people that feel unseen, is in her emotions have always been big, and we've always known that. And where I look at Lincoln, he's pretty chill. He's not, I don't know if he's the third born only boy, but compared to the two, they look very different.
Yeah. And
I think even between my girls, I know that they start to develop this comparison against each other. Lainey wants to tell us stories constantly, and Adeline's always like, why can't I talk? It's my turn to talk. So that's Adeline's thing. She's trying to keep herself in the game where Delaney's quality time is always trying to take it. Delaney struggles with Adeline. She thinks she's perfect because she maybe manages herself and her time differently than Delaney does. But this, even in their giftings, knowing how to communicate that there's value when potentially siblings could have conflict or comparison. So how do you help create high value for the individual gifts, the individual child, established in the home and then amongst each other?
Yeah. I think that's a huge question, actually. And it's common. Like, just look in the Bible. Every older brother has problem. There's problems all throughout. Sibling rivalry happening all throughout the Bible.
It's not new.
It's not new. It's not uncommon. I think making sure if I'm noticing that, like one kid, it's more obvious. This is easy to recognize. Everyone knows it. Like everyone knows in our family, Brooklyn and dreams. Like that girl will prophetically dream, and we better pay attention because we got to make decisions. God will lead our whole family through her dreams. So everyone knows that, including her brothers. I think, so you have the super obvious one. I think that's a sign to go, I need to make sure and pay attention to the other ones and not give this. You know, sometimes the jealousy is because the parents are giving all the attention to one because it's so obvious and so easy. Yeah. And the other ones, it's more like, I'm mad at you because you're getting all this attention from my parents. Well, parents, turn your attention towards that other one too and go, hey, maybe we don't know who you are fully yet. It's unfolding, where it's developing, but we're going to find out. So I think some of that is like making sure what's my part in this. I think another part is to make sure and remove any type of comparative language of like, well, your brother would, well, your sister knows
Those are
how,
dangerous.
well, your sister is, you know, like that's just feeding the thing. Yeah, so that would be where I would probably start with some of that. Is like, this is normal. But I need to make sure I'm looking at these other kids. What are they missing that's causing this? What are they feeling like they're not getting from me that's causing this? How can I turn that up and pay more attention? How can I point stuff out? How can I help? I think it's important to also celebrate the differences and the uniqueness. Like, yeah, I think you said it somewhere else. Like, the goal was never to be like your sister. That was never the goal. Like, oh yeah, you are you, and we're gonna find out who you are, and here's what I love about you. And here, sometimes it's like, can I fill their tank, so they're not trying to fill it themselves with this competition thing. Yeah. Like, oh, you're empty in a spot. Can I fill that tank up? Help fill that up for you.
And this is, to use Brittney's word. I'm making your word now, but the engaged parent, this is such a great example of the engaged parent. Is I have to lean in to each child differently, which we talk about all the time. Parents always say this, like, why isn't there just a manual for parenting? But they're all so different. But it's true. They're different gifts, different personalities, different needs, and so it just requires me to engage and kind of lean in and figure out what's happening in you that's probably never going to happen the same way in them.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to.
Yeah.
You're meant to be different.
Yeah. I have a great story of just my girls comparing each other, but I think that we should probably save it for another time because it's a long, and I want to impact it, and we're already at our time break. So
we are.
Good thing you and I have.
Maybe we'll get to it and send it to Seth.
We
have
weeks
to come
to talk
back.
about this.
I know.
We'll send you the episode, Seth.
Yeah.
I'll let you know about it later. Don't worry. But always good conversations.
Yes.
I think. What are all the books you have, Seth? Make sure that they know them, just in case they don't for some reason.
We have one. That book is called Raising Spirit-Led Kids. That one talks about sometimes parents are they're being led by other spirits besides the Holy Spirit, and how to train your kids in this as well. Sometimes there's a lot of training, not just discovering, but stewarding and training and developing that. So that's in that book, Raising Spirit-Led Kids. We have another one, Win-Win Parenting. It's way more practical, but it's dropped in there. And then another one called Designing God's Dream Home that is basically just, it's a quick book. It's small chapters. It's designed to give you tools in a lot of this stuff that you can apply quickly. Like, here's a mindset or a belief. Here's a challenge if you don't have that. Here's the benefit if you have that. Here's a tool that you can implement that into your life right now. So those are the books I have right now.
And SethDahl.com?
SpiritLedFamilies.world is where we're moving currently.
Okay.
Wow.
SpiritLedFamilies.world.
World.
Yeah.
Is it Universe next?
Someone else had .com, so
.world. That
Universe
works.
is coming.
No, don't confuse him. .world.
.world. I'm sorry.
He's taking the
It's
planet
exciting.
by storm. All right. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yep.
We'll
See you
next
later.
time.